And even theologically, the notion of powerlessness gets deeply ingrained into Jewish thought. So that power itself becomes something that is nourishkeit. It's something that is profane. It is something that is dangerous. It is a type of blasphemy to even want power, because power is one of the exclusive prerogatives of God. Certainly to end Jewish exile is one of the exclusive prerogatives of God. And to arrogate that power for yourself is a problem. It's chilul. It is a type of blasphemy. And so power becomes bad. The idea is that you want to stay away from power. You know, remember that line from Fiddler on the Roof, where they said the little blessing to the Tsar? What do they say about the Tsar?
You got to keep the Tsar
far away from us. Keep it away, power. Not good. And so that not only is there a certain abhorrence toward power, but it becomes a prescription of power. That Jews attaining power is an arrogation of this exclusive prerogative of God. Those who understand that the Haredim are coming, that the Haredim have a problem with this country. Many of the Haredim, not all of the Haredim, have a problem with this country, is the sense that the Zionist movement has appropriated this choice of God when to end Jewish exile and how. We have arrogated power. You want to say?
Just wondering a little bit, because you say first the Jews had power, like in biblical times, the kings, and then they went from to. It sounds like it was like a switch that went from black to white. Like,
it was a switch that went from black to white.
Suddenly they didn't have power, then they were afraid of power almost. It's like, did it? It sounds like so quick, or.
It was quite quick. The destruction of the temple, and the destruction of what Josephus called the second Jewish commonwealth in this country, and on top of that, the failed Bar Kokhba revolt 50 years later, were profound traumas in the Jewish collective memory. And we developed a theology almost as a way of dealing with the trauma of it. Why were we exiled? Why were we exiled? Because we lost to the Roman army? Because we weren't good enough with swords? We were exiled because we sinned. When does our exile end? When we redeemed ourselves. Who decides when we redeem ourselves? Do we decide when we redeem ourselves? No. The Mashiach will be sent to redeem us. This is why, in a sort of, certainly the Haredi theological Daltashan, why Zionism is a form of desecration, because it is arrogating this world of God. Now, move ahead, flash forward, let me know if I'm going too fast, 1700 years, to the beginning of the 19th century. The beginning of the 19th century, it's already well over 100 years into the European Enlightenment, but you know how it is with the Jews, things come a little bit late to us, so we're moving into our Haskalah period, we're getting around to Enlightenment, and there's this rather diminutive gentleman named Napoleon in France who decides that he's going to convene a grand Sanhedrin and get all the rabbis together. He's going to offer them a deal, great deal. Everybody know the Napoleonic deal, 1806? Great deal. Napoleon says to the rabbis, here's the deal. From now on, you can be Jews inside your house, Jewish people, but you can't be Jews outside. Outside, you're going to be French. You're going to give up your law. You're going to accept the Droit Napoleon, and you're going to be Frenchmen. That's the deal. You're going to have to give up your people. And if you do that, you can be part of our society. The ghetto walls will come down. And not a few Jews, particularly in Western Europe, leapt at this opportunity. Great deal. And the ghetto walls reportedly came down. And what they discovered were that when the physical walls came down, or at least the visible world walls came down, the palpable walls came down, there was an invisible wall. Sort of like on the Starship Enterprise, force field, boom. Couldn't go through it. It was called anti-Semitism. They told them they can go to university and be doctors. Turns out they couldn't go to university and be doctors. And the only real alternative for someone who was persistent about getting into European society, succeeding in European society, was assimilation. And usually not just assimilation, but conversion. I mean, a Jew could become very powerful in Europe in the 19th century. You could become an Israeli. You could become a LaSalle. But only at the expense of Judaism, because you couldn't take Judaism with you. because both those gentlemen had to convert in order to become powerful. In fact, you couldn't even be a leader in Britain in the 19th century at all. You couldn't even be in Parliament in the 19th century if you were Jewish. You had to be a member of the Church of England. So, a problem. And the assimilated Jews, this is certainly true of the Reform movement in Germany in the 19th century, true of Jews who were apostates, who left the religion, denied entirely that the Jews were people at all. The Jews were a religion like any other religion. You don't go to church on Saturday, or some actually Reformed Jewish communities in Europe started going to synagogue on Sunday. They moved the day and they started calling the rabbis reverend. They went quite far, but there was a denial of Jewish people. So for both these movements, the notion that the Jewish people would take sovereign responsibility in their hands and reclaim their statehood was complete anathema. And Zionism, when it appears in the mid-19th century, this is already pre-Herzl, immediately starts out with this notion that we have to take responsibility for ourselves. It is no accident that one of the initial concepts of Zionism is that of auto-emancipation, that we have to liberate ourselves. This is a revolutionary notion in diasporic Judaism, the notion that we have to take responsibility ourselves. We can't wait for God, and we can't really wait for anybody else. We have to take this responsibility on ourselves. We have to pick up, leave here, come to a very inhospitable environment and start working this land. But this doesn't mean you can abandon the real world. I mean, what was Herzl great at, besides being a fabulous organizer and fundraiser? He took it upon himself to go to negotiate, like Ezra and Nehemiah, to go and negotiate with the great powers of Europe, with the Kaiser and the Ottoman Sultan, and try to play that role, try to somehow maneuver between these great powers toward recreating the Jewish state so the Jews could take responsibility for themselves. It's it's an historic irony, a very bitter one, that both the ultra-Orthodox Jews who rejected Zionism because it was arrogating the prerogatives of God, and highly assimilated Jews who rejected Zionism because they thought there was no such thing as Jewish people, that the Haredim and the highly assimilated Jews would have an historic reunion on the trains to Auschwitz, and where they were being sent by the Germans because, among other things, the Germans claimed that they had too much power as Jews. In fact, the fact they're on these trains was indicative that they had no power at all. And it's interesting that if you go to the, I'll phrase this as a question. How many people have been to the Holocaust Memorial in Washington? How many people have been to Yad Vashem? You haven't been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington? Wow. Never been to Washington? All right. Why does according to the Holocaust Memorial in Washington, why does the Holocaust break out? Why does it happen? It's a very clear interpretation. There's a story being told.
I don't remember. I was guessing economics.
I'd say intolerance. I don't remember either.
You don't remember either?
Intolerance.
It happens because
Intolerance.
intolerance. It happens because they're intolerant. Sinat chinam, if you will. There's anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a result of years of education against Jews, but certainly intolerance. And the answer to the Holocaust, if you would, the solution to the Holocaust, to use that word guardedly, is what, according to the Holocaust Memorial in Washington?
More tolerance.
Tolerance.
Tolerance, education, love, if you will. Yad Vashem. And mind you, this message has been somewhat mitigated by the new Yad Vashem. It was much clearer in the old Yad Vashem. Why does the Holocaust happen according to Yad Vashem?
Anti-Semitism.
Yes, what else?
No.
Powerlessness. There's no power for the Jews. They're caught in Europe. They have no recourse. What's the answer? Tzahal. Tzahal is the answer. Back in the old Yad Vashem, I don't know if it was this one, it would actually, you'd come out and there would be this view of Jerusalem outside. The image is very deeply ingrained in the Zionist ethos. If you've been to the